All right, so in this lesson, we're going to go over the three different lasso tools that we have available to make our selections from. We have the regular, good old boring lasso tool, the polygonal lasso tool, and the magnetic lasso tool. So let me show you how each one of these work. As far as options for the lasso tool, we've pretty much gone through all of these except for the select and mask, so there's no need to go over those again. So the lasso tool is basically a free-form type tool where you can just go in and draw around an area that you want to select. And in order to complete that selection, you have to go back to the very beginning in order to close out that particular selection. And then you're going to see these little dancing ants. So that's the first option. Next, we have the polygonal lasso tool. And also, if you want to select these tools, the keyboard shortcut is right here. It's the letter L. So the polygonal lasso tool is not as much of a free-form tool as the last one, but it does allow you to make straight line freeform selections. So I can put this particular line at any angle that I want. So it is freeform in that respect, but you are limited to straight lines, and that's why it's called a polygonal selection tool. So that gives you the freedom to make selections based on a straight line if you need to do something like maybe select a building and you want to do a quick selection. You could use this particular tool for something like that. Next, we have the magnetic lasso tool. This one's pretty cool. I like this one. Actually, I'm going to zoom in to better show you how this works. So in order to use this one, what you're going to do is you're going to start on an edge. So let's say we just want to outline the body of our subject. Well, we can come in and click on the edge of the face there. And as I move my mouse cursor along the edge, you're going to see those little anchor points start to click along the rest of the edge of the face. I'm not clicking my mouse button right now. Photoshop is automatically adding those anchor points as I move along the edge of our subject. And that's why it's called magnetic, because it's actually like a magnet. It's detecting the edge between the background and the foreground and automatically applying those anchor points, which is pretty cool and makes it so much easier to make your selections this way versus using the lasso tool, the first one we looked at, and trying to trace around the subject perfectly. You're not going to be able to do it as quickly as you can with the magnetic tool. Now, just like the previous tools, we do have to bring our anchor points back together from the very beginning in order to complete that selection. Now, we do have some different options for this particular tool versus the last tool. We do have the feather and anti-alias, and that's why we don't have a hard edge right here, because I have it set at 20 pixels. It's going to round it out and make that edge selection softer based on the feather that you apply. Now you're going to set the width amount for this particular tool, and this is going to tell Photoshop how many pixels to consider from the edge and the background, or the edge and the other side of the edge. So it's going to go between 0 and 10 pixels to try and figure out exactly where to place that anchor point. The other thing is, this magnetic lasso tool is able to determine the edge of our subject based on the contrast from one side to the other. So there's a certain amount of contrast in his face and another set of contrast on the background. So you can increase the amount of contrast or decrease it to give Photoshop a better idea of where that contrast edge is, so it's able to place those anchor points along the edge where you want it. So if there's a lot more contrast in the background, we could set this to a higher level and it's going to be much more accurate. And then next to that, we have frequency. The lower the number, the fewer anchor points that are going to be applied. You can go from 0 to 100, and if you do 100, then you will be adding more anchor points. So I'm going to set this to 0, and then you can see that I'm not adding as many anchor points, but the problem is, as you can see right here, it's not going to be able to determine where that edge is, and we're actually going into the face. So if you go to a higher number, then it's going to better determine where that edge is, and it's going to add more anchor points. Look how many extra anchor points there are now versus what there were before. So go ahead and grab this image or any image and play around with the frequency, contrast, and the width, and you'll get a better idea of how to use this tool and how it actually finds the edge in different situations. So try an image with lower contrast like this one, and then maybe find another image that has a high amount of contrast from the foreground versus the background. All right, so those are the 3 lasso tools. In the next lesson, I'm going to show you how to use the magic wand tool.